from chapter 14, which picks up where Maya has been stuck in the first row, and Gabriel goes back to get her. When Gabriel had first crossed the barriers, the experience was terrifying. After a series of journeys, he had learned how to guide the movement of his light. Although his physical body had nothing to do with this knowledge, the process reminded him of skydiving or body surfing, activities where a shift of weight or a slight movement of the arms could propel you in a different direction. Crossing over, his consciousness sensed the right direction and was able to guide his light to the first realm. The arrival itself was always unexpected. After passing through the barriers, you were suddenly there. It was like lying down in one bed and waking up in another. He opened his eyes, scrambled to his feet, and saw that he was standing in a long, narrow room with a shattered window at one end. Out on the street, a gas flare blossomed like a bright orange flower from a crack in the pavement. He was in a store that had once sold refrigerators, washing machines, and stoves. These appliances weren't the modern devices with stainless steel facades that were displayed in New York or London. Instead, the washing machines had ringers fixed over an open tub, and the refrigerators were white metal boxes with cooling coils mounted on the top. The old-fashioned technology made each appliance look like a squat little idol, once worshipped, now abandoned in the room. Gabriel turned again and found a shifting patch of darkness on the wall behind an overturned stove. Although this shadow could only be seen by a traveler, it was a passageway that could be used by Maya, a route back to a specific access point, the hidden chapel at St. Catherine's Monastery. He pushed some of the abandoned machines across the room to mark the way out and walked over to the broken window. The appliance store was on a boulevard lined with other looted shops. A half-burned sofa and a pile of concrete rubble were on the sidewalk in front of it. The trees that had once shaded the area were now blackened trunks and leafless branches that reached toward the light of the flare. Once again, he wondered if his father had explored this dark city. Gabriel's pathfinder, Sophia Briggs, had said that only a few travelers crossed over to the different realms. Many thought that the power to leave their bodies was a hallucination. Others were so terrified by the four barriers that they refused to go any further. During Gabriel's previous visit to the first realm, the commissioner of patrols had mentioned the visitors who came from outside the island. Perhaps one of these people had been Matthew Corrigan. When Gabriel thought about his father, he recalled moments when Matthew was driving the pickup truck or working in the garden. Nothing was frightening or dangerous on their farm, but sometimes an expression of great sadness would appear on his father's face. Perhaps he'd been thinking about the anger and hate that imprisoned the inhabitants of this dark world. Gabriel slipped out the entrance and headed down the street, moving with an alert and cautious rhythm, like an animal that knew it was being hunted. The last place he had seen Maya was at the abandoned school that was used as a headquarters for the patrols. Although it was dangerous to return there, he decided that it would be the center point of an invisible circle. He would start searching at the edges of the city and then spiral inward to the streets around the school. Hell was a permanent reality, trapped in an endless cycle of destruction, creation, and destruction again. Perhaps everyone in the city was dead except for a few wolves and cockroaches. When the last survivor perished, the city would somehow return to that first morning when the sky was blue and hope was possible. The pain of hell was all the more powerful because of what had been lost. He had no idea if Maya was alive, but it didn't look like the cycle of destruction was over. Light oozed through the thick cloud layer that covered the sky. The air smelled like burning tires and bits of ash covering the street. Everywhere he looked, he could see words and numbers scrawled on the walls and sidewalks. X crossed the sky, green 55, here is the place, remember. Some of these words delineated certain territories or fiefdoms that existed in the past, like the gang signs in his world. But most of the graffiti was put up by people who believed they would be reborn in the new cycle. Before they died, they left clues and coded directions to hiding places and caches of weapons. He paused at the corner of a building and peered down a side street. It was dangerous to be here. Eventually, he would be seen by the wolves. He considered different strategies, then decided to leave messages to Maya all over the city. After searching through a burnt-out grocery store, he returned to the street with 2 pieces of charcoal. Feeling like a teenager in a deserted subway station, he scrawled a Harlequin loop on a brick wall with the words, "Where are you?" The next street over had been turned into a dumping area for broken chairs, 2 faceless grandfather clocks, and a pile of smashed crockery. Someone had dismantled a carousel and left the wooden horses leaning against a brick wall as if they were chasing each other down the block. Gabriel touched one of these carvings and felt the smooth surface of the black saddle and the flowing mane. He decided to leave another message, but when he raised the piece of charcoal, he noticed faded words written with red paint. Each letter had dribbled at the edges as if they were bleeding. "Are you the traveler?" asked the writer. "Have you returned?" Below the words was a red arrow pointing down the street. Had Maya painted the message? That was possible, but Maya probably would have included the loop or interlocking diamond shapes, Harlequin signs. Gabriel stood beside the carousel horse for several minutes as he considered the possibilities. Then he headed down the street in the direction of the arrow. 2 blocks away, he found a second message that led him onward to additional signs. The words were always written in red paint, but the size of the letters varied. Sometimes the message was splattered high up on a building like a billboard, but usually there was only a red arrow painted on the hood of a smashed delivery truck or a door still hanging from one hinge. As he drew closer to the center of the city, footsteps appeared in the soot that covered the pavement. On one block, he found a dead man lying on his back. The corpse had been there for some time and was dried out like a mummy. With shriveled lips and yellow teeth, he appeared to be grinning at the destruction around him. The red arrows were smaller now, as if the messenger had sensed the growing danger and decided to hide. Gabriel found no further clues on the next corner, so he doubled back and discovered an arrow pointing to the building across the street. The massive structure looked like a bombed-out church with a tower on each corner. Its entrance was like a semicircular archway, similar arches shaped over each window. Someone had cut words into a marble plaque over the door. Museum of Art and Antiquities. Wary of a trap, Gabriel stepped into the entrance hall formed by 2 intersecting arches. The museum once had a ticket booth, a cloakroom, and a turnstile, but everything had been destroyed. Apparently someone had felt particular hatred for the turnstile and had taken the time to heat up the brass bars in a bonfire and twist them into pincers that reached toward the ceiling. He had heard about the city's museum and library when he was a prisoner, but he'd never been allowed to see the rooms. Turning to the right, he stepped into an exhibit hall filled with smashed glass cases. One still had a brass plaque that read, "Ceremonial drinking cups from the Second Era." There were no flares to light the interior of the museum, but the windows on one side of the room looked out onto a courtyard with a fountain in the center. Gabriel stepped through the window frame and approached the fountain. Sea monsters with gaping mouths had once spat water into the fountain pool, but now the green marble was covered with soot and delicate flakes of ash. "Who are you?" a man asked. "I've never seen you before." Gabriel turned around looking for the speaker. There was no one else near the fountain, and the smashed windows that faced the courtyard looked like picture frames displaying sections of the night. What should I do? He thought. Run? In order to escape to the street, he would have to cross back through the museum to the turnstile. "Don't waste your time trying to find me," the speaker sounded proud of his invisibility. "I know every part of this building. It's my refuge, not yours. What are you doing here?" "I've never been in the museum. I wanted to see what was inside." "There's nothing here but destruction, so go away." Gabriel didn't move. "Go away," the voice repeated. "Someone painted messages on the walls. I followed them here. That has nothing to do with you." "I'm the traveler." "Don't start lying." The voice was harsh, contemptuous. "I know what the traveler looks like. He came to the island a long time ago and then vanished." "I'm Gabriel Corrigan." There was a long pause, then the voice spoke with a cautious tone. "Is that really your name?" Gabriel had once seen photographs of an army sniper wearing something called a ghillie suit, a ragged assembly of dark green fabric that changed a person's silhouette and allowed him to blend into the countryside. The man stepping through the doorway had created a similar costume for hiding in the corridors of the abandoned museum. Swatches of gray and black fabric were sewn together in a haphazard manner to make a smock and trousers. Rags were wrapped around the man's shoes. A gauzy black veil hung from the brim of a hat and covered his face. Silently, the man glided across the courtyard before stopping 10 feet away from Gabriel.